On this week's FAS TV, we're in the Cairngorm National Park with the Smith family at Auchernack, the Strathspey Monitor Farm. As part of the Monitor Farm programme, the Smiths are trialling the use of virtual fencing to graze and utilise an area of unused hill ground. We also hear from Anne Eleanor Asson, who's the head of farmer success at the Norwegian virtual fencing specialist Monil, who are supplying the technology. We'll also hear from Duncan Morrison at the Deeside Monitor Farm. This winter, Duncan set up and grazed an innovative outwintering system for his forage-based suckler herd, using deferred grazing and rolling out bales of forage. This allowed for a cost-effective wintering system while offering nutrient cycling and building fertility in the soil.
So I'm Duncan Morrison. We're Deeside Monitor farmers here at Meacom Aldrin. We farm 3 units here. We've got a block at Inverurie and a block at Contour, where we run suckler cows there too. And the finishing stock and growing stock are over at Inverurie. So there's 3 main blocks that we run. So the cost to keep these cows on this system is around about 80 pence per day, which we believe is quite a cheap winter for these cows. It's healthy. There's, they're managing the system really well, and they're in good nick. And I'm quite happy with that as a figure, because the whole sort of ethos of this business is keeping them cheap and cutting down on bedding and machinery costs and just the general fixed cost of a suckler herd, which has been one of the main issues. So yeah, cheap winter is pretty important. So the type of cattle we run, we're usually split around 50-50, Aberdeen Angus and stabiliser. We've got pure bred herds of both breeds and a commercial herd, which is a bit of a crisscross between the two. We run around 250 head to the bull this coming year between heifers and cows, and there's 111 in this group here. There's another 100 across at Contour as well. So there's sort of 2 main cow herds that we run. So our suckler herd is predominantly forage based, so we winter outside and we calve outside, so we need to try and keep a system where the cows are cheap to keep, and we've got a farm here that's particularly quite good for outwintering. It's generally quite dry, quite well sheltered as well, so once we get to weaning time in the autumn, we'll draw the calves off and they'll either be housed or wintered elsewhere. The cows then went on to kale, which they strip graze with silage bales as well, on daily shifts. They were on that from mid-November right the way through to the end of January, and then the cows moved on to this field here. I think it was just the beginning of February, and this will take them all the way right through to calving time in the 2nd week of April. So we should be getting the first calves on here just as we're finishing the field. This field's about 30 acres, and it's keeping 114 cows for around about 75 to 80 days. We've done a fair bit of deferred grazing in the past, so we've kind of got a decent handle of what a cow's requirements are and how things pan out through the winter time with various weather patterns and all the rest of it. So previous years we'd strip grazed deferred grass with haylage and silage, and we'd use feed rings. But what we found was, even though we'd made a really good job at grazing, the areas around the feed rings were poached, and the ground deteriorated as a result. So what we've done this year for the first time is experimented with rolling the bales out. The main asset with that is that any trampling or poaching is very evenly distributed across the whole field, so there's no clear poaches around rings or things like that. So the idea is that we'll be able to graze this field again. The plan for this field is have 2 years of cows wintering on it, like this, on deferred grass, followed by at least 1 or 2 years of kale, and then after that will be followed with arable silage under sown. So the plan would be to build a lot of fertility back into the soil and then prepare it for a new grass sward in a few years' time. We're rolling out bales every day. We're giving them 4 bales a day, the 114 cows, and they get a strip of grass that's round about 450 metres long by 3 or 4 metres roughly. So what that does is gives them a decent diet, but using the Monitor farm and the facilities, we've done a bit of analysis of the diets, and we've discovered that it's probably a little bit short on protein, purely because the hay is probably poorer quality than what we'd hoped, because it was probably baled just a little bit too early, or it had to be baled that day because of the rain. So that meant that it was a bit poorer quality. So we're trying to maybe increase the area of deferred grass that we're giving him a little bit more than we planned to lift the quality. We're also looking at getting in protein blocks just for the last month before calving, just to you know, a bit of an insurance policy to make sure that the protein levels are you know, what they need to be, so that we can you know, the cows are milking and the colostrum's good quality. So we plan to do blood tests as well in the next few weeks on the lead up to calving, just to make double sure that you know, all the cows' nutrition's been met perfectly, and there's no problems, you know, on the lead up to calving time. I'm pretty confident that everything should be all right, knowing that we've done this for, you know, quite a few years, but this will actually be the first time we've done you know, blood tests in the lead up to calving time. So it'll be quite interesting to see. We can compare it against the other herd that we've got at Contour that will be on kale right the way up to calving time. So it'll be interesting to compare as well. So infrastructure wise, we've got two fences here on the block. We've got the feed fence at the front, obviously. We've also got a back fence behind. For the main reason is that it's to try and protect the grass that's been grazed in, you know, previous weeks, to give it a chance to recover, and the cows aren't tempted to go back and nibble away at the fresh shoots, because we're hoping to graze this again, probably in summertime, and definitely again next winter. In terms of water, we've installed a drag trough, so it's just a homemade metal trough with skids that we made ourselves, and it can be moved every few days as required, just again to minimise poaching around one central point. And also because the feed face is moving throughout the field, it saves them having to constantly track back and forth to our water point, that the water follows them. So these cows are going to stay out here right the way through. There's enough bales lined up to take them through to the 12th of April, which is pretty much due date for when they're due to start calving. Once we get past that date, they're then into another block next door, which is right in front of the steading. There's only about 10 days or so worth of haylage there, but by the time we've got through to the 22nd of April, we're probably well past halfway through calving time. Once we've got to that stage, the cows that have calved are moving on to paddocks into the management groups, and they're getting peeled off as they calve. And when we get to the end of the bales that have been lined up, we'll then stick them into a set stocked calving paddock, and I'll just feed them daily with the hustler bale and winder, which will give them exactly what they need. Once we get into the calving time, we'll start feeding them at night instead, which we believe helps them calve through the day. So that's a tweak that will happen just in the lead up to calving as well. So in terms of plan B, by utilising kale and deferred grass, that was a bit of an insurance policy that if we got a lot of snow, the kale would stand up a bit better than the deferred grass. As it happens now, we're into March, we've used all the kale, so we certainly hope there's no snow coming between now and calving time. But yeah, having the two crops in the lead up to winter gives you a chance to tweak it if need be. Generally this system's a bit cleaner than kale, so if it is really wet, it's probably better to be on deferred grass than the kale, and if it's really snowy, it's better to be on the kale. So, but as the winter goes on, you run out of less and less options, I suppose. But yeah, we've got a stock of silage as well that we can come in and feed. We could bring in ring feeders. We've got a tractor-mounted bale and winder as well. So there are other options if it gets really bad. But the cows are generally pretty good. I suppose there are some environmental benefits to the system. We've not really burnt a great deal of diesel in this process. We made the hay and left the bales in situ. We lined them up, you know, in a manner that we knew that we were going to be feeding 4 bales a day, and so there are 4 rows, and it's quite a streamlined sort of system. I'm here with a quad bike every day, but apart from that, there's no machinery being turned. We're not in and out the gateways with tractors. We're not digging up the ground with big ruts and things. So soil compaction shouldn't be too much of a problem. And there wasn't really any fertiliser put in here either. So it's quite a cutback kind of system. But yeah, hopefully it's a cheap one and an efficient one.
We're farming here at Congish and the Hernick. Congish is a rented farm and the Hernick we're owner-occupiers there. So we're running 150 breeding cows producing store calves that we sell in Thainston. The split is 50 calving in the winter time really and 100 calving just now in the spring. I put my name forward for the Monitor Farm programme because I thought other farmers could relate to what we're doing since we're quite typical of beef farming in this area, and I thought there was more value in looking at someone who's quite ordinary rather than a really shining example. With the Monitor Farm programme, the first thing we looked at was animal nutrition, and we've been working with Karen Stewart from SAC, who's been looking at diets and stuff, and now we're in our third year. We're looking to do something different using virtual fencing collars from Mono, and we're going to look at making more use of our out-by land to graze a different type of beast more extensively. We've recently changed from using mostly Limousin sire to using shorthorn bulls to try and get a quieter suckler cow and a hardier suckler cow. So we're planning to use a bit of hill ground that we haven't been able to use much in the past few years due to I think there's about 12 kilometres of fencing all the way around it that is needing replaced, so we could graze it with the virtual fencing. But it's in a neat scheme, so we're going to target the grazing to different areas at different times of year, and we've got like some wader grazed grassland and that, so we'll be able to keep the cows away from the nesting areas when the birds are nesting, because we've got quite a strong environmental focus on how we farm as well. There's plans to make more use of it once we see how we get on with this first group. Even if you could use it on rented grazings where you could almost use it like a strip grazing system and move them that way. The collars today are going on to a group of heifers that we're going to be bulling in June, and we thought it was better to try it on animals that didn't have calves at foot just to see how we go for a start, so they'd be more controllable than cows that had young calves with them. Once we put the collars on the heifers today, this group are basically all shorthorn sired animals now, and just for temperament and for hardiness and to make better use of the extensive grazing. So once the collars are on, we're going to take them home, and we've got an in-by field that we've mapped out on the system, and we've also put an electric fence across just as another backup for training. So they'll go into half the field, and as they get to near where the temporary electric fence is, they should be hitting the boundary of the virtual fence, and so if they do go out with the virtual fence, the electric fence will turn them back and they'll go back to the group.
Mono is a virtual fencing company that comes from Norway. It's 3 years old, and we are about 30 employees, mainly engineers, but also some farmers that are making this technology. And the devices work primarily using sound to keep the cows contained in the field. So you download an app where you draw the boundary with your finger, and then that fence is downloaded into the device. And when the cow that is wearing the device approaches the fence line, there is a sound emitted from here. And the sound goes from a low pitch to a higher and higher pitch. And if the cow doesn't turn back to the direction where it's supposed to be, then it gets a little shock from these electrodes. So the shock is about 1/10 of what you get from an electric fencer. So it is a little bit uncomfortable for the cow, just enough for them to learn that the sound means turn back. So what we see when the cows are done with their training, they are primarily listening to where the fence line is, and if they take it too far, then they get a little shock. So usually cows have many hundreds of sounds during a day, so instead of seeing the fence, they are listening their way through the field. Most of our customers invested in the product because they had a lot of fencing costs and spent a lot of time maintaining fences. And they also wanted to be more flexible. So this fence, you can move it as often as you want, and you can make as big of a pasture as you want, as small. You can also make exclusion zones, which is very beneficial if you have bugs in your area or specific trees or things that you don't want the cows to get close to, or pathways where you have hikers to keep the public away from the cows as well. In addition to that, you can always see in the app where the cows are at all times, which gives the farmer the opportunity to monitor the cows from everywhere. So many of my customers tell me that they start their day with checking Facebook and Instagram, and then they go into the Monal app and check that all of the cows are in place. They also use the devices to see if a cow is in calf, to see that it's in one place in the field for a longer period of time. The devices can also tell you if the device is completely still, then you would know that there is something wrong with the cow. And since this device is so closely fitted to the cow, that means that the data that we are collecting with the device is very accurate, telling us a lot about the animal health. So moving forward, we are focusing on building features that will tell you more about the health of the animal. So in August, September this year, we will launch our first version of a heat detection system. And we have a long list of things that we want to build based on the information that we have on the animal's health. Together with QMS, we have 4 of the monitor farms starting to use this product this year, and each of the farms have each their goals with the use of the product. So it's both just containing them in specific areas, maybe moving the boundary to make them graze more precisely in different areas, but also to keep the bull close to the herd and other things that the farmers want to do with the product. And we are closely monitoring the performance of the devices and the results of the product and the project, and then we will communicate that when we have the results. So what we have done here today is that we installed this device on all of the adult cows in the herd that you see behind me here. And we also drew the fence line 2 to 3 meters on the inside of the physical boundary. And now the cows are in training, meaning that we have started the fence, and when they approach the physical boundary, they will also meet the virtual boundary, learning what the sound and the shock means. And the training usually lasts for a week. If you do it properly and by the textbook example of how to do it, then it can take shorter than that, but I would recommend planning a week of training.
The Monitor Farm programme's possibly given us a bit of a push along with decisions we were struggling to make with regards to a change of breed in cattle, moving to the more native side of things, making more use of the lesser ground that we have, pushing us to make decisions probably more out with our comfort zone, by allowing other people in to see what we're doing or what we're not doing in some cases. It's been great to get other people's opinions on how we could change things, especially like the running of the farm, the setup of the herd, and with regards to calving periods and bull selection and choosing the breed of our cow going forward. I've been at home 10 plus years now with Dad, looking for more ways to make life easier for ourselves, and fortunately Dad was able to get a job with the National Park as an agricultural advisor, which in turn allowed Hamish to come home, which in itself has reaped benefits, a fresh set of eyes, and I was maybe getting a little bit stuck in my ways, having been on my own for so long, and just getting a fresh perspective in, and different ideas on how we can run things. And the two of us do have a clear vision for what we want out of the farm in the future. So if we can work together through that, then that's probably what we're aiming for.
I've only been home a month now, or a month and a half, and it's pushing the ball with succession. Dad's gone elsewhere now as well, so it's been quite good to be able to get my hands stuck into it and try and push it in the direction that Callum and I want to go in.
The land we're working with, only 100 acre, 200 acre of it is arable. The rest of it's very rough, not used for crop production or grass production. So the collars are hopefully going to help us maximise the ground that's not able to be used for that. It's an option we'd never really considered before. The ground always had a use at a certain time of year, but the collars are going to help us utilise it at a time of year that hopefully it can have a better effect.
In theory, it should be more cost effective than either erecting new fencing or trying to restore old fences that might only have a 20-year lifespan. It should save you a lot of money in the long run and be able to use the same ground, but probably more efficiently. Instead of just a large area, you can make small pockets and graze that individually, so it should be a bit more productive than just grazing a massive scalp of ground.
The hill the cows are going out onto is just over 250 acres. There is grassland in amongst it, which is what we're aiming to try and rejuvenate with focused areas of grazing. There is also a lot of natural habitat up there, which hopefully the fences can save the cows from interfering with that too much at certain times of year as well. We're hoping to see a change kind of towards October, September time, when they'll be coming back inside. Hopefully, we've done it with other areas, rougher areas of the farm, and the greenery that's come back in it through cattle having been on it, and just trying to find the right balance of what we need to do with that. It really is as easy as it sounds. You do literally just clip the collar on, make sure it's the right tension around their necks, and then into the app, and the app is extremely easy to navigate. Setting up your boundaries is literally just at the touch of a finger. You can make it to whatever you want. We have seen it working, and we're pretty satisfied with the results. So it is just as simple as it sounds, which is great, because I think some farmers can get a little bit flustered when things get too complicated, and the simpler it is to work, the better. And Monol have been great with regards to helping us set it up and get started with it. And I think from now on we should be pretty sorted with it.
If there's new technologies to be used that you can see a use for, definitely go for it. But you know, I'd like to see more collars in the future maybe, and you know, a larger batch of cows. But it's fine to trial it on a smaller bunch, especially ones that are so quiet. But yeah, you know, if you don't have to replace any more fences, that would be great.
The margins are getting finer and finer, and if you can get the most out of ground that maybe wasn't quite so much used to you beforehand, then it's a cost saving somewhere else. I think initially it's not something we'd ever really considered. We were already running a rotational system with electric fences and weekly shifts, and QMS thought it would be a good thing for us to look into, and they were very helpful in following up with it and making sure we got in touch with the right people. And Monol have been very responsive, very interactive as well, which always helps when you're wanting to try new things.
So here we are, 23rd of April 2025, and this hill is being grazed for the first time properly with cows in about 4 years. And we've already filmed the animals coming into the area, and now they're just finding the boundaries of the virtual fence.